Oh, should have read
Steph, let's talk real quick. Where are we putting these items? Let's start with Joby's.
You can put that underneath.
Right here?
Yep. How are you?
So the green one is just okay.
I'm like counting down days. How it's gonna happen.
Okay, so we have the,
Snowing. Over it.
report.
Oh, no.
100 degrees.
That there.
Second we see in a while.
Housing rehab work plan. And he was gonna give an overview on the housing rehab work plan is why he's here today.
It was just, it's nice to be back in person too, by Marty, like,
No, he's not here.
sitting up there and then just remember.
He's here, Mayor.
how we used to hear.
Oh, all right.
Except now we gotta get
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, I'll call to order the regular meeting of Chisholm City Council for April 13, 2022. Good evening, everyone. Margaret, could you take roll call, please?
Counselor Collison.
Present.
Counselor Nicolai.
Present.
Counselor Falcon.
Here.
Counselor Nash.
Here.
Counselor Baki.
Here.
Mayor Champlin.
Here. Adopt the agenda. Council, we have a couple of additions, corrections, whatnot. We have a letter of resignation from our sexton at the cemetery. We're going to take that up as item number 9 under the city administrator. Council, I'd like to just ask your opinion on something, a little change I'd like to look at for tonight. I don't know if you had an opportunity to look at your email and an email that Administrator Scraba sent out earlier today, but I would actually like to sit down with the council and have a working session, discuss all the different projects we have in front of us and how we're actually gonna, which ones we're going to borrow money on, which ones we're going to use grants, see where we're coming up. The recommendation from the administrator was to, what would be the term, accept these bids, but not act on them tonight. Can we do that, Jim?
We table those items.
Just table the items and then actually look at, put together a full plan. That's what I'd like to do with them, and I'd like to take that up, under that area right there to set up a working session to try to put together all the projects we have in front of us and then come back. I don't think it would be nothing to put these two bids off for 2 weeks and do that. So that's what I'd like to do. I don't know how the council feels about that.
Fine with me.
Sounds good.
So council, motion to adopt the agenda with the one addition, and then we'll look at these 2 bids as part of a whole package to set up a working session, come up with a date to do a working session. So can I get a motion to accept the agenda with those changes?
Motion.
Thank you. Adam, second for that?
Second.
Thank you, April. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public participation. First up tonight, we have Robert and Laura from Wendell 5 Bugles. Some of you attended. We had a informational meeting earlier tonight about update on our public safety building. They're here tonight to give the rest of the council that wasn't here or haven't been involved in those meetings a little bit of an update. Good evening. If you could come up to the podium so the folks at home could hear you, that'd be great.
Well, thanks for having us here tonight. It's nice to see you all in person again. A lot of
Yes.
virtual meetings over the last couple of years. So basically an update for everyone who has not been involved in the project. Last fall, I guess we could start back there. The original project had been put on hold and we went back to a schematic design level of design. So in the design process, there are 5 different stages of design to get to the end of the project. So we have schematic design, which is kind of big picture, go to design development, closer, more detailed construction documents, which is when we actually do the final package. We put the project out to bid, and we have construction administration. So what we were told to do, or what we were directed to do, is go back to the schematic design concept and reduce the square footage of this project. So that's what we did. We reduced it down, and I don't remember what the numbers are off the top of my head, but we reduced it down to where the council was comfortable. So then we went through and we submitted our project. So when the state was given, when the city of Chisholm was given the state funding of the 1.9 million, it then has to go through this process called B3. So B3, I don't know if everyone's heard of it, but it's like the state of Minnesota's version of LEED, which is sustainability, leaders in energy. I can't really think of what the actual acronym is. Anyway, so B3 is a program that we have to go through, and there are different checkpoints that they need to see. So what we did is we went through the schematic design phase and submitted that package to B3 in September and October of 2021. After that time, we knew that there was a chance that we were going to get some funding from the national. So we kind of had a little bit of hold throughout December and a little bit into January. And then in January, when the EMS service was brought on, we were able to meet again with the group to add those EMS spaces back into this facility for the first time. After that, we kind of just waited to see if we were going to get that national funding or not. And once we were given permission to move into design development, which again is that second phase of design, we came back and started meeting throughout January to make sure that we were on the right step, make sure there weren't going to be any major changes to the floor plan, and then started designing. So at this point then, we've got our full design team working on the project on a pretty rapid pace now in order to produce the next set of documents. So today what we did is we had a presentation where we looked at interior elevations. We looked at to see like how the casework is going to be, or the countertops, the cabinets and the spaces, how is the space going to function. We reviewed what the exterior of the facility looks like, started picking the finished selections. A lot of this had already been selected in the last round of design, so it's just kind of making sure that we took all of those commons and ideas and concepts that we had before and implementing them into this facility to make sure it's all accurate and what is going to serve your community well. So moving forward from here, we will wrap up our design development documents in mid-May, and we'll come back for permission to move into construction documents. At that design development endpoint, we will also be giving our documents over to a commissioning agent to perform a review of our documents. So part of that B3 funding has a lot of different steps and requirements that we have to have, and one of those requirements is commissioning review of our 50% documents, which is what they will be doing in May. So we'll take a little pause of production at that time when they're looking over that. We'll have another updated estimate at that time from our team just to kind of see where we are at with the project. Like I said, we'll come back and ask for permission to move into construction documents, and then we'll start producing those documents. Barring any major setback from B3 or from a commissioning agent redesign, we're not anticipating anything from a commissioning agent, but the B3 part has been a little bit more challenging for time schedules. But barring any major setback from that, we're hoping that we would be back here again in July to ask permission to go out to bid. So I don't know if there's any questions or if you want any more of an overview for the project.
Just on schedule-wise, so we've got floor plans and elevations in your packets, and we can certainly go through those on the 11 by 17s, more has them bigger, so we can collect different things, but I think what did you include, floor plans, elevations?
Yeah, so the council received interior floor plans, a dimension plan. In this particular facility, what we are doing in order to, like I said, to reduce the square footage down to where we were all comfortable for the budget, we are showing currently 3 drive-through apparatus bays for fire, 1 longer drive-through apparatus bay for the EMS service, and then the Sally port for police. One of the alternate bids that we were looking at getting when we do receive the bids from the contractors is to add an additional apparatus bay for the fire right away. And then the second thing that we are looking at doing for an alternate bid is to add on an exercise room, a fitness area for the departments to use. So in that packet, there are a couple extra sheets in there where we're looking at the pages. So you're given the first floor plan, the mezzanine plan, the alternates for the apparatus bay, the alternate for the fitness addition, and then exterior renderings. So tonight with the group, we sat down and looked at those exterior black and white renderings, and from this point forward, we'll start presenting them more in color, so that way you can get a better idea of what they'll look like in the end.
Yeah, photo realistic renderings, so start putting those in, since we got the colors that we liked. And you'll see the isometric drawings are a little simple enough to see what you end up getting in the end instead of the flat 2D versions. But
How are bids coming?
I'm gonna let Robbie talk.
I'm sure you've been in a few bid processes already this year. I mean, where are they falling?
So we just bid a project in La Crosse, Wisconsin, I think in
January 6th. we opened it.
January 6th. And that one came in at about $285 a square foot. That was 2 stories,
Now-
20-some thousand square feet.
There's a caveat there, so that square footage included the site work. So when you look at the estimate that was provided for you, we took forward the amount of money that Krause Anderson had figured for that site development, so that dollar per square foot that you're seeing in your packet is not the 285. It's because we took the site portion out of that 285 to come up with the number for that.
Separate number.
Yeah, so that's why you have that line item for the site development down there, and then you have the square foot numbers in there.
So cost-wise, I think they're probably right where we are, kind of, cost per square foot in that estimate. Biggest thing we're running at is just bidding price. And that's the problem now, it's just, and that's the problem everywhere. Materials, how long it takes to get materials, we're gonna do a project tomorrow in St. Peter, Minnesota, so we'll have another set of updates on costs, so that's great. But we're not gonna start that project in August because it's gonna take all the way to August into October and November to get a precast, so that's what's driving a lot of our schedules, is ultimately getting the stuff, when does it make sense to start and go from there, like beams or bar joists were a big thing for a while there. It was impossible to get bar joists, so we switched all of our bar joists to beams at the roofs, and then everyone else had that idea about switching to beams, and then next thing you know, beams you couldn't get, right? So it's this constant game as we move forward through this process, and we get a good feel of what those long lead time items are. We'll update all of you and show our concern, but the newest good news is tomorrow we get a new set of numbers, another fire station, so we'll be able to tell, approximately where we're at cost-wise as we move forward. And after this DD phase, we'll take these documents, another estimate, and get it out there. We got a lot more detail on the plans every time we do something, so.
The other thing to keep in mind is we have not seen, Stephanie was just able to send us the requirements for the federal funding. So obviously if the federal funding has anything that is going to impact that cost, we'll make sure that gets in the DD estimate. And if there is any other additional B3 items that will impact the cost.
Stephanie was mentioning that money's going to come through the USDA. That St. Peter project is a USDA funded project, so it's great timing for us because we're familiar with all of that and how it went together on St. Peter. So
Senator Klobuchar told me it was a cakewalk, the checks in the mail. It didn't sound like that today. So you answered the next question I was going to ask. A few contractors, bigger ones, reached out to me and basically asked if we look like we might be bidding this project this year. And some of the feedback they gave me is be ready to approve it if you bid it.
Yeah.
Have your money in place because their numbers are really based on being able to get the approval right away. And then the other one was give a big contractor a year to get it done. You got to give us a year at least because we can't be trying to get things faster than we can get them because that raises our costs. So give us plenty of time and be ready to approve it when you get the bids or relative, within a month.
Yeah,
so.
It used to be that, a contractor would give you 30 days to say yay or nay. Some of the, not the main contractor, but their suppliers will give them 24 hours to say yay or nay. So it's definitely been a different and challenging bidding environment for the past, I'd say 18 months.
Yeah. I mean, like we've got projects that bid at COVID, like a heck of a deal because no one was doing anything. Now everybody's doing everything, so it's just one of those worlds we're living in right now, ultimately. And like I said, tomorrow we'll get good numbers and keep updating those numbers and providing the forth as we go through.
Good.
But yeah.
Questions, anybody? Marty, go ahead.
I have one. In the cost estimate, I see the add alternate for the fitness. Where was the one for the other apparatus?
Did I forget to put that on
I
there?
don't know, is it built in or?
Nope, I think I forgot to put that on there. I'll double check to make sure that
Okay,
that square
see-
footage isn't included.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. Let me check
I just
that.
noticed that.
See, this is why I have people review it.
Anything else, Council? Well, Robert, Laura, thank you for coming up today, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Right?
Before we leave, I just want to make sure there was a question about the commissioning. Is that with your group that we have talked about that, or is that the general?
Yeah, I just said we may have some questions on commissioning, but
Okay, if there was
if there is
any.
any, that's coming up in the agenda.
We can hang around until
If there was anything specific that you would have for them.
Yeah. Do you have any of these, any colored left? I was thinking of my other three counselors that didn't get the real copies. If you happen to have three, that'd be good for them.
I don't know if I have three, but I can give you what
All right.
You want us to stick around for that commissioning? I guess, B3 requires that commissioning, ultimately in the end. It's really actually a great service, and having to do it because you're having someone overlook the design of that mechanical and ultimately the installation of the mechanical electrical plumbing contractors. So it's a great service. It's something to pay for, but again, it's a requirement of B3 and it's just part of doing business with the B3 requirements.
Robert, I think if questions come up, I think we can field them and we'll get the answer for the person. once we
Having
start.
them on board right now, a lot of times you wait until you bid and then you bring them on board, they'll let the P3 requirements. As Laura said, they review the 50% documents, and so they're commenting back, so when we get time to bid, P3 is fine with it, commission agent's fine with it, everything's good. So bringing them on the team early to give suggestions is nice too.
It'd be nice to get back with the April showers being flakes.
There you go.
Anything else, Council? Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, next we have Robert Streeter. He's going to talk about our housing rehab work plan. Good evening, Robert.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Bob Streeter with Streeter Consulting, and I've been asked just to spend about 5 minutes talking about the housing rehabilitation work plan. I believe you have it all. You have a copy in your packets, so I'm just going to highlight a couple things. In the city's comprehensive plan, in the housing chapter, the council has identified as a goal to ensure and increase the number of quality housing options. And so that's the goal. And within that goal, there are 3 broad strategies. One's new housing construction, one is redevelopment, and then one is rehabilitation. So within those 3 strategies, I'm just going to be talking about the rehabilitation. So the rehabilitation of existing housing also has 3 parts. One is financial assistance, one is regulatory, and the other one is support. And a lot of times that is referring to technical assistance or in-kind support from through the community. So the proposal tonight highlights a work plan to really address housing rehabilitation. And so if you look on the first page, it talks about the goals and then identifies the tasks. And the goals are to really address the rehabilitation needs of 1 to 4 unit properties in the city. That results in upgraded housing opportunities for current residents, supports the city's business attraction and retention and expansion efforts by providing attractive housing for the city's future labor force. So under the work plan task, the first task is we're focusing on 1 to 4 unit properties, and we're going to identify which of those is eligible and ineligible. Most of the programs in the state of Minnesota apply to owner-occupied properties. I can tell you from my initial analysis, Chisholm has a large number of properties that are non-homestead. So these properties would not qualify for these programs. And there are few, if any, programs in the state of Minnesota that are directly are providing for 1 to 4 unit properties, non-homestead. So you're going to want to know that as you think about how you want to address, if you want to address non-homesteaded properties. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to identify, I will identify all of the possible methods and resources that are available. So no stone's going to be unturned. And I can tell you right now, from just my experience, most of the resources that are available to Chisholm residents, CAP assistance to households earning 50% of area median income or less. Between 50 and 100, there's really nothing. So there are going to be programs that are likely going to be available for a greater number of Chisholm residents. The third work plan task is to look at developing some kind of targeted rehabilitation program. I think it's around the high school. I don't know what the boundaries are yet, but we'll be looking at that. Work plan task 4, a property maintenance code, to look at the pros and cons of adopting a property maintenance code. I know generally from my initial analysis, there's probably around 500 properties that are non-homestead in the city. And therefore, you may want to consider adopting a property maintenance code as a way to establishing a minimum standard to ensure those properties remain in good condition. I will identify other ideas or things the city could, by itself, in partnership with others or other community groups, to support rehabilitation. For example, providing technical assistance for homeowners who aren't familiar with the rehab process, or what's it like to work with a contractor, or what kind of permits do I need. And then the last one would be for tasks 2 through 4, to identify the preliminary next steps, if there's any budget implications, what are the possible funding sources, and who can deliver these programs. I know in Greater Minnesota, and I'm working out west, there's a big challenge with finding nonprofits or other organizations to deliver these programs. So I'll be looking at ways that those programs can be delivered to Chisholm residents. So what you will be getting is you'll be getting a report with all of the options. You'll know what's being provided. I'll identify what's not being provided, potential next steps, any cost implications, and then the council can pick and choose which ones you want to do and which ones you don't want to do. So it's a buffet. So with that, Mayor and Council, I'm turning back and happy to answer any questions.
Council, anything for Mr. Streeter?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Larry.
I guess in the plan, and this may be coming out of our comprehensive plan, talk about new housing, housing rehabilitation, and multi-unit. Are we including senior housing within this framework of all three, or is that a separate topic? And if it's not being addressed, I'd like to see it addressed, because I get requests from seniors that don't want to own their own home anymore. They want to stay in Chisholm, but there's no place, apartments or condos for them to move into, where they don't have to take care of the yard and fall snow and all that, take care of the house.
So if I could answer, yes, Council Member, this will address rehab. The senior housing component could be addressed as part of the wet addition proposal. There's also, I understand, a parcel the city is considering for senior housing that I may be asked to, like wet addition, get that opportunity ready to go.
Okay. I think as long as we keep it on our radar that we're addressing it, because I get asked frequently, and anybody else does, but I think it's important. Because people want to stay here, but they have a hard time finding a place to move into when they want to get rid of their house.
Thank you, I hear that.
So this is more a question for our EDA members. So are we trying to target a certain area or any particular area that has houses that could fall within our, you mentioned something about the area around the school, so there's a couple of blocks there you're looking at specific? Okay. Answering my question.
Yeah, we are looking at that target area around the school, kind of a higher need area that would fall in the programming that Bob will be researching on.
In any of your scope, Bob, which I've heard a lot of good things about you, Bob. Do you look at like the potential for a higher end apartment complex? I mean, when you're going through all this, because, population is one of the things that we talk about a lot here in Chisholm, but we just don't have housing. But we need to increase our population. Well, higher end apartment complex, would certainly help with that.
Might help with the seniors as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just think that, like he said, to keep it on our radar as
But in our EDA meeting, we have all these categories set off, so this is just one aspect of one of the priorities that we've, formulated, so.
Councilman, if I could add or address your question, I think being aware of the council's desire to do what you talked about and that you have opportunity. I mean, I know a lot of builders and developers, and I've talked to them about coming to Chisholm and maybe doing a project, and there are a couple that are interested. They're not really familiar with the area because they don't really get out of the metro. But I think there's sufficient interest. For them, it's the bottom line. Can they build it at a profit? And is there sufficient labor to do the work?
Okay.
Nothing else, Council? All right, we'll be taking him up later on the agenda. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, last item we have under public participation, we have John and Rodella from the county who are going to be with us for our Board of Appeals and Equalization on the 19th. And my guess is they want to try to make sure we're all meeting for the same reason next week. Good evening.
Good evening. We're Bella Lafreniere, John Peterson. We're from the St. Louis County Assessor's Office. We wanted to stop by and talk to you guys before you had your meeting next week for the local Board of Appeal and Information. Local Board of Appeal, and see if you had any questions. We have seen an incredibly active real estate market. I don't know if you guys have already been getting calls from people. We have. We're looking at property increases, ballpark around 25%. So we'll make sure that if you had any questions, we got a chance to answer them for you.
One for Stephanie, too.
So what you have in front of you is both of our business cards. There's just some really interesting opinion articles that were put out by the Duluth News Tribune. Why are you trying to tax us on our homes, which is the first thing we hear every time we answer the phone. I'm certain that's what you guys are hearing too. We've also included the sales books for you, which is a list of everything that's sold in Chisholm during the study period that we use to set the values for the real estate. And there is commercial sales included in the end of that as well. Did you guys have any questions, or is there anything we can do to help you make the meeting go a little bit easier next week?
Well, I think we have to stay on topic, I tried to explain it, Facebook. Somebody posts something, 900 other people post other inaccurate statements. Before long, there's a witch hunter literally out there trying to get you. I tried to, inform the people. I think I did a pretty good job. The meeting's not about taxes. We all know that. It's about home values, and home values are based on sales. It's that simple. You hear people say, elections have consequences. Well, if elections have consequences and this is the outcome, you should pat your council and your county people and your state people on the back because your value went up. Your house is worth more money. They translate it into taxes, and I've tried to explain that. Taxes go up at the end of the year when we all set our levies and budgets. That's where you worry about your taxes. With everybody's value going up a little bit because sales are going, taxes don't change too much. They could go up or down because we're still talking about the same amount of money, but if somebody's goes up a higher percentage than somebody else's, theirs could go up a little. Somebody's could technically go down if the levy wasn't changed. I think that's pretty accurate. But yeah, it's to try to just keep it on point that it has to do with its values. It's based on real sales.
And you've had an extraordinary number of sales. You had 69 properties that sold in the last year. Your typical is generally 35 to 40, so an incredible increase in volume. When we checked the MLS yesterday, there were 5 properties listed for sale in Chisholm. That's it. That's all you have. It's kind of interesting to come and sit and listen to other people talking about, you don't have the housing, you don't, even the folks that talked before that, they don't have the contractors available for building. It's just this snowball effect, and the increase in property values is something I've never seen, and I've been doing this for a long time. So basically, we just wanted to make sure you had ample opportunity to take a look at any of the information that we have available for you and answer questions. We want to just necessarily spring a 25% increase on you, 2 minutes before people started coming in the door.
Yeah, our son is looking for a house, and they said, I looked at a bunch of houses with him and his fiance, and they're $50,000 houses, and they're selling for $120,000. They got them listed for $120,000, and they're selling them at that. So those are real numbers. They're real numbers. And when you look at what it costs to build something right now, those are real numbers too. It's I don't know, anything for John or Adele before next week?
A quick question. So how quickly, obviously a lot of people think that this housing bubble is going to crash. Is this something you review every year? So if all of a sudden, if this is a down year, next year we're going to see numbers subside, or?
Yep, we're on a 5-year rotation. So on the first year, we come out and actually go door to door. We verify our measurements. When COVID is not an issue, we ask to go inside and we actually appraise each property individually. And that happened this year, which is part of the reason I think that you're going to probably hear from a little more folks than typically. And then in the 4 years outside of that, we do everything just mathematically. It's like, this neighborhood's selling for 10% more, this one's selling for 10% less, and then we make just blanket changes all the way across entire neighborhoods. So we do look at them every year, but not with the level of scrutiny that we do on the 5th year.
Thank you.
So did you go in any of these this year or no?
Not this year. We are allowed in properties for people that are appealing at the board, and that's the first time we've been allowed in properties since COVID started.
So on an appeal,
Yes.
then you would be able to go in? Okay,
Yep.
okay. Good.
Go ahead, Marty.
A question, thinking of the process, when people have to file their intent to come and appeal their evaluation before the meeting, or what's the deadline before? Is it the day of the meeting? or-
Generally, people just walk in and they can surprise you. So next Tuesday, you could have
I thought
nobody
that
here,
they
a
had
couple letters, or
to
you could
submit
have.
their value in there so we could see what it was, and
You can do it that way.
If you're not
you got to
gonna be
report beforehand who was.
Yeah, I think you can simply call Stephanie up and say, hey, this is the number off my value statement, and I think it's too much, and I'd like you to review it, and we'll have it pulled out then, when they get, whether they're here or not, we'll still look at
We'll have
it.
a tabulation before.
And if-
Otherwise, people can still just walk in and just
Yep.
Yeah, so whatever,
demand justice.
yeah, whatever your meeting, I believe, is from 4 to 5.
Yep.
So anyone that's here between that time, they have the right to be heard, even if they
Okay.
haven't contacted anybody beforehand.
Yeah, and if they are written, we have to have them by 2 o'clock of that day. I have,
If they are written.
If they have
Yes.
come ahead of time.
Yep.
Notified you. Okay, thank you.
Have you gotten any written infos?
I have,
Have you forwarded those to us, or could you?
I will.
So we would, Eileen would probably notice already, we already have a second date set up. We do, don't we? Yeah. In case we have an appeal, we can revisit it. Okay. I'm assuming we do. Sometime that happens. You know, these things have come a long way. When I was the mayor 20 years ago, if you showed up, I'd just cut a couple $1,000s off your value and you leave with a happy smile on your face, and you guys don't really let us do that anymore.
You know, we were talking about that on the way over, and the incredible, like, I haven't seen pitchforks in a meeting in a long time.
Well, stay tuned. It's 2022. Anything else, council, before we let John or Della go? All right, we'll see you on the 19th. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a little bummed out that my house isn't on here. There's no pictures of my house on here.
All right, we'll move on to council reports. Let's start over with Councilor Halverson. Report tonight, good evening.
I have no report.
Councilor Fountain, report tonight, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I just have a small report, and first I'd like to apologize to the citizens of Chisholm and the community members and all the city council members here and employees that I apologize for my absence the past few meetings that we've had, and I just want to give you a brief update. You're probably wondering what's going on, why wasn't she here? I just had some unfortunate events happen in my life, and medically, I'm very open and honest with what's going on. So I've had 3 foot surgeries. I was diagnosed with Wolff Parkinson's White syndrome in my heart, which they found out before I had surgery. So that was a good thing that they found out. And I'll soon be having a heart ablation surgery on that, and then eventually soon with back surgery. So if you keep me in your prayers, and I appreciate that. And again, I'd like to apologize to all of you for my absence, and thank you for understanding.
Well, I hope I speak for everybody that your health is more important than being here, so, and we will keep you in our prayers. And
Thank you.
Councilor Vaki, report tonight?
Yeah, just a couple of things, nothing super new. No surprise that I am going to talk a little bit about the splash pad. We did win the contest for that $50,000. We've since had our first fundraiser, which went well with Papa Murphy's. I don't have any updated figures, but I do know that it went fairly well. So thank you to everyone who had pizza that night. We appreciate that. There is now a Venmo and PayPal and all that fun stuff. These flyers you'll see them all around Facebook and around town. For people to donate, we did get a very generous donation from a former Kiwanis president who passed from his wife. So that was great. We do have a pasta feed coming up at Valentini's, and then in the fall we are planning a raffle for that. So those are just a couple of updates from the Kiwanis Club. In addition to those, Miss Chisholm is kicking off next week, so that'll run until May 26th, which is coronation. And the CCF, I'll have a little bit more of an update next month, but we have a couple of fundraisers in the works for the CCF as well as the all class, which is this summer. So that'll be a big event for the city. So that's all I got.
So Kiwanis, they're like 100 years old this year too, aren't they?
Correct, yes.
And the Sportsman Club is 100 years old. I wonder, a lot was going on back then, eh?
Yeah.
We could ask Billy Lachine, but he was only one.
Yeah.
He might not remember. Thank you, Travis. Councilor Mickler, report tonight.
Good evening, no report.
Councilor Lance, report.
Just, we sat in with the public safety building meeting. It's flowing around. I think it's going to go really, really good. It's very exciting. On the fire department side, I'd like to congratulate David Chase, Patrick Pope, Eric Olson, and James North, all completing their first year of service, and Corey Lundeen, 6 years. So thank you all very much for what you do for the community. And that's it.
Good. Thank you, Adam. You know, I don't really have a report tonight. I just, there's a lot going on. The thing with the splash pad, that's the kind of a proud moment there. I mean, you know, we were just, compared to some of the bigger cities we were going up against, and nearly had as many votes as these bigger cities, or if you had looked at them on a apples to apples basis, we just absolutely beat them hands down, you know. So a lot of community pride there. So it's good. There's a fundraiser coming up again, another one. So we ate pizza last week. I think we're just finishing them up. So I'm ready for another fundraiser. So that's good. All right, we'll move on, Council. Jess is, as you know, she's been busy around the clock keeping our ambulance service running. I actually asked Stephanie if we could get a report from her, a written report, just to get everybody up to date. I'm actually going to read it because the reason I like to have staff members here is so that the people at home listening can hear it as well. So I'll just read it so everybody gets to hear from her today. So, Mr. Mayor and councilors, I want to take a moment to still provide you in the city with an update on the ambulance service despite my absence from the April 13th council meeting. The service continues to do very well and has been responding to a number of calls not only in Chisholm, in Balk and French townships, but to also offer mutual aid to Buell and Hibbing. We have staffed an ambulance for a number of second out or simultaneous calls recently as well. We currently have 4 EMRs that are in the home stretch of their EMT training and will hopefully be able to start on-the-job training in EMT role in May. We are currently training another staff member who recently promoted from EMR to EMT. There are additional personnel in other various stages of certification and/or training too. Many of you are already aware of the RAMS meeting on 4/21 that will be focusing upon the state of the EMS in our region. I am a speaker at that meeting amongst a panel of EMS leadership. Overall, it's fantastic getting to watch everybody grow now that the novelty of newness has subsided and we settle into the business of providing excellent service to Chisholm and our surrounding areas. As always, I'm available for any questions, comments, or concerns. Jess Davis. So that was nice. And I believe that is a communication as well. Yeah, the RAMS communication on page 7. I got an HRA meeting that night, so good to attend if anybody else is available. So, all right, move on to the fire chief. Any report tonight? Nothing. Council, anything you need from the fire chief? Police chief report tonight?
No, I haven't lived underneath my
All right. Building official, Mandy, report tonight. Council, jump in if you have questions as I'm going through this. Jim, engineer, report tonight. Where'd he go? It's gone.
You know precisely when to leave.
All right, we'll leave him. Larry, report tonight. I guess you're next. Good evening.
Sorry to block the street, everyone. I do have to stress, please, those casual laborers, please get those applications in. The first round ends tomorrow, so you get priority hiring. And then after that, we'll leave it open for you if you needed a little extra nudge or a phone call from me, perhaps. But please get those casual labor applications in. We have a lot of work to get done, and we appreciate you and we need you. So, and we're hiring up to 20 budgeted, so. And then, the campground is surprisingly doing very well opposed to the weather. It's not really camping weather, but we have 5 at the campground already, so that's very good. Not as good as last year, but still very good. And in Public Works, I know I'm starting to get phone calls already. We will get the patch trailer out as soon as possible, but in the snow, it just does not do its job. So we'll be patching holes and working on alleys as soon as it dries up, and hopefully as early as next week. That's the high points from Public Works. Get those applications in. We need them. Anything for me?
Council, anything for Larry?
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Rec Director Pammy, report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. I'm pleasantly would like to report that Kathleen Skurla and Jennifer Werewis will be back at the summer rec program, which is going to be great with my retirement. They'll be able to handle things fine. We're doing interviews next week for the summer rec aides. The community ed has approved us up to $1,000 in busing for that program. I'll be coming with a resolution for that. Youth soccer registration, I have about 54 kids registered in that program. Here I'm talking soccer, it's snowing. The youth center, tomorrow we're having an event, big spring egg decorating event with ice cream floats, pizza, and a few raffles. And mixed volleyball registrations are open, so get those in. And I helped with interviews for my position, and we'll be doing a second round tomorrow, and that went really well. And that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Thank you, Tammy. Council, anything for Tammy? Jim, did you have a report? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Just very quickly, next Wednesday, 5 o'clock at the Senior Citizen Center is the public informational meeting on our 5th Street Southeast Infrastructure Replacement Project. And then in 2 weeks, again at 5 o'clock, just in advance of your next meeting, will actually be the formal public hearing on that same project. So both at 5 o'clock next week at the Senior Citizen Center. That's not a requirement of the Chapter 429 process, just more informal for the public to ask questions, get information. And at 5 o'clock next week, Senior Citizen Center, here at 5 o'clock in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All right, our library supervisor is out. City attorney report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. No formal report.
Council, anything from the attorney? We don't see him much. We usually say that's a good thing. Clerk treasurer is on vacation. I believe she's in a really nice sunny place. No snow there. Arizona, I think. Feel bad for her. Marty, you feel bad for her? City Administrator Stephanie, report tonight.
Yes, I have a couple things. We are wrapping up the interview process for the confidential administrative assistant and for the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Director because our 2 employees are retiring. So we are wrapping those up, and hopefully at the next council meeting, we'll be able to bring somebody forward. I also want to mention on the Redhead front that Redhead did recently win an award at the 2022 Minnesota Brownfield Award in the innovation. So they were recently won that award. So things are going good at Redhead. We're moving forward with races for the spring and the summer, and we will bring those more information to come at the next council meeting on those races. That's all I have.
Council, any questions for the administrator before we move on?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I should have spoke earlier too, about the ambulance director in that area. On the fire side, we always talk and acknowledge firefighters that hit their anniversaries and, what they do for the community. But I would just also, on top of Ms. Davis, who has been doing a phenomenal job with the ambulance service, 2 EMTs that came over from the prior service, Michelle Olson and Jessica Chanel. I can't say enough thank you and everything that they've done for the community. They've stepped up to come and share their knowledge and their passion and teach the new era of EMTs. So what those 2 have done for the community is just, it's beyond words. So thank you all very much.
Yeah, it made all the difference. It really did, with the 2 of them coming on board, so. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Those are your list of bills that were in your mailbox earlier. Fire Department minutes, Police Commission minutes, the Range Association of Municipality and Schools communication minutes of the previous City Council meeting for March 23rd, 2022, payroll and overtime. Can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Motion.
Thank you. Travis, second for that?
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to new business. What are we doing with that?
It's nothing,
Just information.
It's just information. They already covered it, so.
So the first item, the public safety building update, we basically went over that already with Robert and Laura. Anything anybody wants to add there? We'll just skip over it. It was going to be informational anyway. So we'll move on to commissioning proposal for public safety building, Stephanie.
Yeah, Jim, I don't know if you want to assist with this. Laura and Robert had touched on the commissioning proposal. It is a requirement of the B3. In your packet, we have the proposal from Hellberg Engineering. Jim, did you have anything to add?
Questioning, because I'm not an expert and don't know really much of anything about commissioning other than dealing with energy efficiency. But I would refer you, as members of the council, to pages 29, 30, and 31, which outlines the scope of work that Hellberg Engineering is proposing on this project, dealing with meeting requirements, setting standards, and so forth as they go through the design process, and then that really takes you down through, down to, on page 30, down to about section 2.07, which is where they start to incorporate that stuff into the construction documents, the plans and specifications. And then, as you see on page 31, are really the commissioning operations or functions that take place when we're actually under construction. The part that I would note is I had, as Stephanie has in her request for council action, you see their proposed costs for those here. Back, page 14, which was the most current update cost estimates from Wendell 5 Bugles on page 14, you see that it budgeted into the whole project cost were the commissioning fees stored at the bottom of that cost estimate from Wendell 5 Bugles. And for the basic commissioning, Hellberg's proposal is for $35,000, which is what is budgeted on that budget form from Wendell 5 Bugles. And then for the actual construction commissioning or enhanced commissioning, you'll see Hellberg's proposal is for $36,045. What's budgeted through Wendell 5 Bugles was $36,500. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. I'll try to answer any questions you may have regarding commissioning.
Yeah, I don't know, it's something we have to do, so there's not really a lot to do it. I'm getting really scared, with the $3.5 million, now we got the list of what we gotta do to get that too. It's tough, eh?
The B3 guidelines for this project is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, when safety had given
An
us,
office building or a dormitory or classrooms or something like that, it makes a lot of sense, but where you've got volunteer fire department, bay doors and so forth, for what we're getting return on the dollars, it becomes very questionable, in my opinion.
yeah, had they give us 3/4 of the money or something, it's a whole different deal, but, appreciate the $2 million, but when we get done and one of it goes to the extra we have to do, it makes it kind of tough.
Well, just to your point, you go back and look at page 14, which is that estimate of probable cost from Wendell 5 tubers. You look down at the bottom, they outline what the additional costs have been recorded to date is $515,000, over 25%. It was already lost to what we could have in a building. I'm done with my survey.
So what's the number we're trying to approve here?
$35,000 for the first one, so it's, I think, total $71,045 is my math is correct. 35 for basic and 36 or 45 for the enhanced commission.
I was looking for a motion to approve the proposal from, what's her name?
Hallberg Engineering.
Hallberg. I had it right in front of me. Hallberg Engineering to do the commissioning for the B3.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Adam. Second for that?
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Jim. Housing rehabilitation work plan that Bob talked a little bit about tonight. Steph, you want to start us out?
Yeah, Bob did a really good job of outlining what this project is and what it could look like. Like we've talked about in the past, the EDA met probably about a year ago at this point and identified the needs for the community as far as housing goes. And our number one priority was new housing development, which we've already approved, and Bob has started working on that within the Wenton edition. The number two priority was a rehab, which we've heard over and over, is how can we help our citizens to create a rehab program for the houses that are in need within our community. So that's where this is going to address. I believe this is an opportunity to actually start some programming that could potentially go regionally within our area, because it would be great to get some things started where we can mirror that within other communities too, because this, in my opinion, is kind of a lack within some of the communities within the Iron Range to have the framework set for the assistance, for not only providing the assistance, but helping to be able to provide funding for these sorts of projects. And we all know it's a need to be able to assist our citizens to be able to rehab their homes. So I think it's I strongly support this project. We do have it budgeted currently in economic development. And just to touch on what Marty and Councilor Halverson and Councilor Vaki have discussed, our next phase that we're hoping to go to is a multi-unit facility. So that is the next phase of housing that's been identified within the EDA. So I strongly support this project. If there's any questions.
Stephanie, that's the cost?
Yes. Yep.
At $8,840. So yeah, I think this is a good project coming out of EDA as well, so I would entertain a motion to sign this contract with Bob and get that project started and see where it goes. It's a budgeted item.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, April. Second for that?
Support.
Thank you, Travis. Further discussion?
I just want to comment that, I need to give some kudos to the people on the EDA, because we've really moved mountains, in my opinion, since Adam and I have been able to sit on there, and it's a pretty fabulous committee to be on. And when we sit down and do these strategic planning they're very organized, they're very orderly, and we follow our list. I mean, we're already hitting projects that are 23, 24, you know, so we're really moving the pin for projects for Chisholm, which is great.
Yeah, and Administrator Scraba is doing a great job, and it can be slow moving. This is, Travis and I started talking about doing some kind of project like this before Steph was even with us, and it's just, it takes time to build, and that's why we're always so happy to continue on with DDA, so. It has been very good, and this is gonna be a wonderful project for our citizens. And then the county can raise their tax value. Just kidding, just kidding.
You know, it helps to have a roadmap. You really have to look at what are the important projects and try to stay within them. That helps a lot. And then, you know, you can put so much money in the economic development budget to try to do economic development, but at the end of the day, you need to try to keep finding money, and you guys have been relatively successful in doing that. So, just got to keep plugging away. So, it's good. Okay, we have motion support to approve the housing rehab work plan. Any further discussion, council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Welcome aboard, Bob. Again, welcome back. Resolution number 0422-45, accept library donation from the United Way. That's another great thing. Look at this. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, the United Way has given a donation of $2,000 for our 2022 library summer reading program. So I just entertain a motion to accept that.
Council looking for a motion to adopt resolution 0422-45, accepting the $2,000 from the United Way for the library.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Second for that?
Support.
Thank you. Adam? Further discussion? Thank you to the United Way.
Thank you so much. I think they donated to like 27 or 28 libraries on the Iron Range.
Oh, they have? Oh, good for them. Good.
Thank you, United Way.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Stephanie, harassment policy.
So the department heads have been working with Ravina, our HR consultant, to make sure that our policies are all up to date and where we need to be. Within your packet, Ravina has provided kind of an overview of how often we should review HR policies and why. Each policy has been highlighted on why we took a look at these particular policies and why they need to be changed. And we will be looking at the harassment, controlled substance and alcohol testing, and acceptance of technology use. I do have just one minor change on page 47 for the harassment policy, where it has a revised date of 4/28/1993, and then we have an updated date of 8/15/2012, which is also in your packet. So I'm looking to approve the harassment policy would be our first one.
I have I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
So on page 49, under reporting procedures, Exhibit A, what if the recipient is intimidated, I'm just saying, by this person and felt that they couldn't stick up for themselves and asked them to stop? Or would their case not be brought forward because they didn't go through the correct steps of reporting?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that would, that's something, because sometimes that is intimidating,
Sure.
especially for a woman. I'm speaking from my perspective.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want for somebody to, unless it was really...
Right. Yeah, if the employee doesn't want to address the person that is doing it, then they could come to any supervisor or myself, and then it would be investigated moving forward.
Could you add that in there?
Yeah, I think it is. I read that earlier. I just want to look at here really quick. So it's under B there, April, I believe. Yeah, under B, I think it addresses that.
Okay. If the individual is uncomfortable informing the offending party of the concern, notify their supervisor or city administrator. Thank you for the clarification.
What's the updated date that you gave?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor. Nobody has any other things for the approval of the harassment policy?
Thank you, April. April made a motion to accept the harassment policy.
Support.
Adam supported it. Travis, did you have a question?
Nope.
Council, any further discussion on that policy? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Controlled substance and alcohol testing policy.
So as in the harassment policy, Regina has had an outline on page 42 of the controlled substance and alcohol testing and why the changes are needed. There has been some statutory changes that we have to abide by within that policy, and we do have the old policy on page 51.
What do we do with these policies when we get them? Obviously, they're policies. Do we give them to all the employees? That it just automatically, they get a packet with all the new policies in them?
Yeah, so once they're approved by council, they'll be rolled, well, we do have some training through the supervisors that have to happen with some of the policies, and then they'll be rolled out to all employees, and employees will have a chance to ask any questions that they have, and they will not become official until everybody has seen them.
I'll make a motion to approve the controlled substance and alcohol testing policy.
Thank you, Adam. Second for that?
Support.
Thank you, Travis. Further questions or comments, concerns?
Mr. Mayor.
Marty, go ahead.
Just one comment. Would you look at the bottom of page 61? It's page 6 and 61 in the packet. The sentence kind of ends, and I don't know, is the beginning of the next page the continuation of it, or is there some language missing there? At least on mine, it's the very last sentence at the bottom of the page.
We don't have a page 7.
I've got a page 6 and a page 7.
Oh, it's on the back side.
Yeah, it's on the back, it looks like it's on the back side, Marty, but F probably shouldn't be there.
Oh, it's just I was wondering if just the F is missing.
Yeah, I think that maybe just got added, so we can take that off.
All right, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it looks like the end of that sentence is on page 7.
Okay.
And or misuse. So we should adjust that so that G is actually an F, and we should fix that.
The F just needs to go away.
Well, then you don't have an F. We should have a G be an F, right?
G becomes F, yeah.
Yes, right. Sorry, yes, yep.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a quick question.
Go ahead, April.
On page 59, where it says random testing, it just says any employee in a safety-sensitive position. Couldn't this be all employees? Are we all in a, no? Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, it's just anybody that would be operating heavy equipment, DOT standards would be the employees that we have. Then that's going on currently. That isn't a change to our policy. We do random testing for like heavy equipment operators, people that work in the public works.
And that's just random, April. Anyone can be drug tested for a reason.
Anybody.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Just a random policy, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody could draw the hat.
Well,
Or name on it.
no, we do have a requirement to have a random drug policy for some employees, which we do. But if there was an accident or an incident or true cause, anyone can be drug tested at any time for a particular reason.
If there's like a suspicious behavior, they could be drug tested. But the folks that are randomly selected through the agency that we work through are drivers. You don't randomly drug test like
your employees?
No. It's the ones that go through the DOT standards, which is the guidance from the state.
Thank you.
They're all drug tested when they're at hire, just so you're aware of that.
Oh, yep.
Okay, we do have a motion and support to accept a controlled substance and alcohol testing policy with the slight change where F basically goes away where it was and then G's changed to an F. Any further discussion on that one, Council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Last item, the technology acceptable use policy.
So same thing, Ravina had outlined the reason why we were looking at that policy, and we haven't had a comprehensive technology acceptable use policy. We had a social media policy that didn't really touch on everything. And there is an Chisholm Internet Service Policy, which is also outdated. So this is basically just bringing that policy up to date with the new technology, just the way things are constantly changing. And then this is guidance also, she gets some consideration from CW within this technology acceptable use policy too.
Okay, looking for a motion to accept the technology acceptance use policy.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Adam. Second?
Support.
Thank you, Marty. Further discussion, Council?
One question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Marty.
So the Facebook policy or social media policy, that's going to remain in place?
Nope, it's actually on page 77. It's going to be within the new policy. The internet's use, including use of social media.
VI 6, whatever.
Yeah, so it'll be encompassed within this new policy.
Under 6?
Yep.
Correct, yep.
Okay, so, because I think that the 2017 policy dealt with the city's pages, right? The city's Facebook page and things like that. And that's still going to be managed in a similar fashion, because it didn't really go into, I think, as much detail as.
Yeah, yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's not changing.
I think the main one there, when using it, that you're not supposed to misrepresent that you're saying things on behalf of the city is a big one there too.
Yep.
That it's your personal opinions. It has to be made clear.
Yes.
All right, we do have motion and support to accept the technology accepting use policy or adopt it. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next one's informational local board of appeals and equalization on April 19th, 2022. What time is that meeting?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Right here at City Hall, the two folks from the county.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4 o'clock, excuse me.
4 o'clock.
4 to 5.
4 to 5.
4 to 5. And it can go longer, it just can't go shorter when you do that, I believe is the correct thing.
Yeah.
We have to be here at least till 5, so that's informational. What's on the back side?
It is.
I don't think you guys used to do that, they were always on the front side, and you keep getting me on that. Next item, council, is the item I had that I lost. It's a resignation from our sexton, Joby. Let me find it, so. So anyway, on April 11th, we received resignation from our sexton, Joby Wolf, effective 2 weeks from the 11th. And we're looking for a motion to accept his resignation and send a letter to Mr. Wolf thanking him for his service to the community for how long you worked there? Quite a while.
10 years, maybe.
10 years, so.
I'll make a motion to accept his resignation and thank him for his service.
Thank you, Travis. Second for that?
Second.
Thank you, April. Further discussion, council? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Larry, did I miss something there on what you wanted to do next there?
No, it was just informational there.
For the next-
So we had to bring forward a job description.
Next time and stuff? Okay.
Request by at the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, so now we're up to Vern. Good evening, Vern. So we have a new police officer. I met him in the hallway the other day.
Good evening, yes.
And I said, I wonder if, do we have to get Paris set up? And
It's a good thing you said that, because usually I'm like a couple months behind before I remember.
they had it in,
Margaret goes, hey, did you?
they had it in their hand when I asked the question. So Vern's here to ask us to adopt resolution 0422-48 to allow para for Colin Olson, but I'll turn it back to you, Vern.
Nope, you hit it on the head. He started last Monday. Thank you, Margaret, for reminding me that we have to get better set up, so that's all we're looking for is approval for that.
Great to get an officer, huh?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so April made a motion to adopt resolution 0422-48 to allow para for our new police officer. Is there a second for that?
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Vern.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I'm impressed with Larry's optimism about doing patching next week when he's probably putting the plows on tomorrow, so.
Well, it's a long week. Next week could be next Sunday.
Eventually, they're going to be right about that 60-degree weather. I don't know. All right, next we got Mandy, ordinance number 153-.291 for short-term rentals, first reading. We've heard all about this. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As you may recall, we placed a moratorium a while ago on short-term rentals in our R1 and R2 districts. Since that time, the EPA and the planning commission have met several times. We did go through, we did come up with the ordinance that is in front of you today. City Attorney Lindsay did review it, and see. So I am just asking you for approval of the first reading.
So could somebody highlight for the people sitting at home what the highlights are of the, how many we're going to allow, who we're going to allow?
Okay, so currently, this ordinance covers the R1 and R2 districts only. Those are the two residential districts throughout the city. In the R1 district, we will be allowing, I believe, it's 10.
We got time if you need to try to drag it out. No problem. I know these, you read them and to try to find it again is tough.
In the R2 district, we will be allowing 5. These numbers are in the ordinance right now. We really just want to have this in place before our seasonal travel season comes up this summer. If we need to change these numbers, that's definitely possible. We just really want to have something in place this summer so we know what we're looking at in the future, what the ordinance will be looking like. There is also a spot in the ordinance where if you wanted to use your home as a short-term rental for 7 days or less for the year, you can apply for a special use permit to do so as well, and that would not be included in the numbers. I do also want to highlight that in our commercial districts, the short-term rental is a permitted use, so you would not need any type of permit to do that.
Just want to touch a little bit on, there is a difference between homesteaded and non-homesteaded property.
There is, yes.
There we go.
It's covered in section.
It's an I. So.
Section
So your type A is going to be your homesteaded properties.
and your type B will be non-homesteaded.
So let me ask some hard questions. Because like you said, this is a new thing and there's a lot of people aren't gonna probably know. And I could have asked you ahead of time, but it's better to ask some questions here because I'm just asking them so other people hear it. So it says you need a license, obviously. Application is submitted, license first, and the city will grant it. Are you doing that?
Yes.
You're doing
That will
that.
all go through the building department.
And is it first come, first serve?
Yes.
And is it a yearly license?
Yearly license at
Okay.
this time.
At this time, okay? Okay.
I think we should maybe clarify the difference between type A and type B.
Yep, it's right.
No, I mean, I know that it is for B, but the person listening at home probably has no clue. Because type A would be like doing your house for a weekend. Airbnb in your house for a weekend, correct? Whereas type B is where you buy a property in Chisholm specifically for
Yes.
short-term
And it is
rentals.
not, yes.
And that one is the 5,
Correct.
right? Am I reading that right? Or is that one 2?
It's two, so there's a maximum of 10 for a type A, which is a homesteaded property. So that's somewhere that you're residing in and you're renting out a bedroom or you're renting out your house for the weekend. In R2. And then in R1, there's a maximum of 5 of type A. A maximum of 2 type B will be allowed in the R1 district, and a maximum of 1 type B will be allowed in the R2 district. So those are the properties that are being purchased solely for having an Airbnb, non-homesteaded properties.
Okay, so then my hard question, and I know I asked this originally, and I have to ask it again, is because, at least in my eyes, I don't believe, at least there should be written in here, or we should all be on the same page, whereas if 10 people submit their application to Mandy standing in a line, and an 11th person gets in the line for that weekend, renting your house for a weekend for Airbnb, they should not be turned away, in my eyes. They're homesteaded in Chisholm, 10 should not be the cap. And that's my own personal opinion on this, but I do not think that we should, that the 11th person in line should be cut off.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead.
Mandy, can you explain where those numbers came from?
Basically, we did just do a study with communities with the same population as ours, and those were the numbers. Actually, the numbers were a little bit less before our meetings, and we did up them. So,
And am I correct in understanding that the numbers that these studies provide comes from the effect it would have on the housing market in the community? That's
correct.
Yeah. So there is some.
Science.
And Counselor Vaki, you could also apply for a special use permit too.
Yep.
Every time you want to Airbnb your house, you have to apply for a special use permit.
If you only do 7 days.
So if there's a big event and they want, if there isn't enough housing or,
I get it, I'm just trying to look out for that 11th person here, in my eyes.
And we did discuss too, if that does happen, we can revise that. I mean, she can bring that notice right back to the planning and zoning, and we can, come back to the council and say, maybe we should increase that to 15, depending.
I think it's definitely it's a starting point. I mean, you're not gonna know. Are you ready with the application?
Yes.
You're ready? So at the next meeting, we approve this and everybody shows up Monday morning or Thursday morning, you're ready to roll?
I am.
Okay, because that's going to be important, I can tell you. Marty's moving out in the woods for the summer, his house is gone. He's riding bike half the summer anyway, you don't need a house.
I'll be camping here overnight, so I'm on the top 10.
So we're looking for a motion, I guess, as presented to approve the first reading of the short-term rental agreement.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Support.
Short-term rental ordinance, I'm sorry. Thank you, Adam, thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion, Council Marty?
One further question. So there's no fee for the people that are in zoning general business, they would be.
It's a year.
There's no application, there's no fee.
In the commercial district.
Commercial.
There's
No fee, not in that license.
It's a permitted use.
Okay, all right.
Mandy, let me ask you one more question. I knew I had one more and I've been thinking. So, are there special requirements that you have to go look at each one of these places in order to issue this permit?
Yes, they are spelled out to me.
Okay, no problem.
And on my application.
All right,
They're basically life safety items.
okay.
I got one more follow-up.
Go ahead,
if you don't mind.
Travis.
At what point do you feel it would be, you would consider expanding that number?
How many more applications were requested?
So you'd have to get like 5 or 6 additional ones, and then you'd be like, you know?
You know, it just would depend on how it's going and how it's affecting the community, and if there were one more, then we would bring that back to the planning commission and discuss that.
Okay.
I think a lot of our thought too was, you set the bar low because it's easier to go up than to hold it back.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mandy. Jim, I don't think you were in here when we adopted the agenda, were you? Come on up to the podium anyway, okay? Because we got to talk about these bids anyway. So what I suggested to the council, and we kind of redid your 2 items a little bit, and I'm going to ask you a little bit about if it's okay, but the council agreed to hold a meeting. Just some examples what concerns me, okay? We did approve $500,000 out of the general fund back a year or so ago to do some mill and overlay. Since then, we spent about that amount of money to buy an ambulance garage and open an ambulance service. We were successful in getting a bunch of money for a public safety building, but we also know that the public safety building, as we took on an ambulance, became more expensive again too. We have a number of different projects, these 2, as well as the 5th Street we're waiting on. There's some crack sealing and stuff, and none of them we're trying to figure out how to put it together. So I'd really, what I asked Stephanie today is I'd like to sit down with her and Eileen and the whole council and put these all on a spreadsheet with all our grants and really see where our gaps are and how we're going to pay for them before we approve them. With that said, I would like to set that meeting, but we can take that up. I mean, we need to talk about these 2 bids, and if we do wait 2 weeks to approve them or something, what do we do tonight? What do you need us to do tonight?
Really nothing tonight. I think by the specifications, I don't know specifically on both jobs, typically there's 60 days for us to award the project. Sometimes it's cut down to 30 days or something like that, but certainly if we do something within the next 2 meetings, we're going to be in fine shape. And Stephanie had updated me as to, what that discussion, I think it's very wise. We got some very good bids. I think what's also helpful is that the way the bids were received, we can adjust how much we want to award on both the library tuck pointing project with the information that Margaret sent out to you yesterday, with the resolution and with the bid tabulation that we received. First of all, on the library tuck pointing, if I can just...
Jim, why don't you? I think, we got time. It's not even 7 o'clock yet. Let's go through the projects. They both came back pretty good, and let's at least talk about the different phases of the library. That's a good one. And then we'll talk about the different parts of that mill and overlay. And at least the council will be aware when we meet on what...
I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor. On the first one was Resolution 422-46, which is the library tuck pointing project. And I think there's 2 sheets that you have. One is the actual resolution, and the other item that was sent out was the bid tabulation form. And that bid tabulation form is good from the standpoint that it identifies on each one of those alternatives which wall we're talking about, or it says that the base bid, as you remember, possibly is the north wall and the entry. Alternate number 1 is the east side of the building. Alternate number 2 is the west side. Alternate number 3 is the south side. Alternate number 4 is wood trim and handrail painting. And then alternate number 5 is the entry stone repair. Then if you go back to the resolution, as you see, the 4 bids that we did receive, and if you go to the far right column of that, you'll see if all those, the base bid plus those 5 alternatives are added together, what that total bid would be. And as you see, we've got quite a range. Low bid's $248,000. The second bid is $317,560. The third bid is $330,942, so there were 2 very competitive bids right there. And then the fourth bid is $441,855. What I provided to you, just so you see, is because that apparent low bidder was low, no matter what alternatives we add to the base bid, if we add anything. What I did there on the second line is the summation, such that I've got the base bid of $96,000. Then if you add alternate number 1 to that, that additional $42,000, that comes up to the $139,000. It's just adding each alternative to that cost. You see, such that if you want to cut back and only award alternative 1 base bid plus 3, that total cost is $232,000. So it just gives you some benchmarks based on what you've got for the budget. So that's really all the information that I have, or I'd be happy to answer any more questions you have regarding that bid. And if not, I'll go right on to the bid for the street reconditioning or the mill and overlay project, which is very similar in nature.
Jim, let me have you add one more part. I don't know if I've seen you write it up officially or not, but obviously when you're talking mobilization and everything else, this 248 is what, about 20,000 over budget? That's why I wanted to hold off, because you probably, I mean, to come back for that extra $20,000, it's a huge number of mobilization. And I believe these are the individuals that did our high school, is that correct?
No,
that one wasn't.
Von Steffens.
The Von Steffens, okay, so quality company, so.
No, I'm sorry, Mayor.
And, and that was it. That's the worst part about these things you look at. It's like, would you really pass up on a $20,000 project? It probably cost you $50,000 if you bring them back to next year to finish the last little part or something. So,
the other point that we can go into a little more detail when we do have the meeting, but on page 98, which is the request for council action, from Mandy and I. It was page 98 of your packet. It's a request for council action. And basically the city had budgeted $110,000. We had a matching grant of $110,000 from a library system matching grant. We had applied for a $15,000 private grant. We did find out, I think last week, that we did not get that grant. And then the other portion of this, I talk about IRRB. Mandy and I and Stephanie have been working on the grant for the library tuck pointing project, roof repair, and some mold mildew issues here on the building, as well as the 2 street projects, the 5th Street Southeast and the mill and overlay project. We've applied for $500,000. We've been told probably to expect $350,000. But that money can be used any way you want to within those 5 projects. So that's part of the funding of this, but you can allocate, any of that money we get from IRRB to any of these projects as you see fit. So that's kind of the funding as I'm aware of it for the library project. But yes, I would say, I think Mandy and I agree with Stephanie that this is really the #1 priority. This is the one that makes the most sense if we can financially and feasibly do it, to get it all done at one time. Because just getting it, remobilization is going to spend way more than what this extra cost is for us this year.
okay. Jim, Marty, do you have a question on that, Marty, before we move on? So let's talk about the other one then, Jim, the street, we're having the bids there.
Here's resolution 0422-47, again, Margaret put together for us yesterday and sent out to you, thank you, Margaret, for that. And I really did the same thing on that one as I did on the library. We received 3 bids. Apparent low bidder is KGM Contractors for $693,753.25. Sabi Bituminous was second low at $806,640. And then Hewlett Brothers was the third bidder at $941,955. And what I did on that one was exactly the same thing on the second line under KGM Contractors, because they were so much lower than the others, regardless of which alternative, if any, that we award. So, and let me back up. As you see, there's two base bids. One is the sports court, for which you had budgeted $100,000. You see that bid from KGM came in at $87,661.25. Then there was a base bid for some of the streets. And all of those are also identified in your package. A little map that I passed out that identifies what's in the base bid and which is each alternate, and that's actually on page 112. It's a little map of the city, and you'll see, you can make the association there. But again, the two base bids result in a total apparent low bid of $399,051.25. And then I just start going down the line and adding alternative one to come up with the $484,000, go down the next line and just keep adding an alternative to it. Larry and I've got those pretty well prioritized in the order that if we need to drop some, the ones on the end, 5, 6, 7 would be the ones. But again, that'll go back to your making that decision on how you want to put that package together in terms of award. So on that resolution, as you get down below where I just filled in all the numbers, and whereas it appears that KGM Contractors and Magor is the lowest responsible bidder for the base bid plus street and alley alternative bids, that will leave blank until we decide exactly how many of those alternatives we want to award. So with that, I'd be happy to again answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, Marty, did you?
I thought I saw where Triple RB had a meeting and awarded some grant money, but we weren't on there. Are they having another round?
I think they're having two more.
Two more
I think
rounds?
one in May, one in June,
Okay,
so.
all right, thank you.
I have a question. or two.
Go ahead, Ava.
On the last project, the mill and overlay that we did last summer, have we had any problems or any upkeeps that we're gonna have to do for this summer for those projects, the project that we did last summer? No problems?
No, we see the reflective cracking, which is expected, but we've got drainage columns, so it drains to the curb and gutter. We are seeing the reflective cracking where the old joints were and so forth, and we just do the normal contracting through the county for that route and seal type of thing. So it's normal maintenance, but we've got writability again, and
For that year?
And I'm sorry.
For that year, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So Council, what I'd like to do, I'd like to sit down as a group and talk about all these projects. Eileen is gone until Monday. She'll be back from her vacation. We got to give her a couple of days for sure to try to, and Stephanie's gone on Monday, so, you know, I could meet Wednesday, Thursday, I have an HRA meeting, so that's off. Like I said, I'm just trying to get a sense of what we have for grants out there, where we got holes. These are both great projects, and the prices came back pretty good on both of them. But, you know, we still have to figure out how we're gonna pay for everything. And with the public safety building, what do you got?
That school meeting's on Wednesday, the 20th.
You wanna just try to go to next week, like on a Tuesday, day before our meeting or something?
Next week or 2 weeks? Next week.
It seems like next week is all goofed up here. So I thought possibly
You have the Board of Appeals.
Yeah, we'll already be here Tuesday.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
We're already all
That
gonna be
would be
here.
good for me. The next week is bad for me.
After the Board of Appeals?
I think we can get it together enough by then to try to figure this out. There's a day there.
Yeah.
There's a day.
Don't think quicker than that.
Stephanie will be able to work through it in the meantime. Following the,
Or there's the public meeting Wednesday for this, what's...
Oh, the informational meeting next
Not
Wednesday.
necessarily all council will be at that, though, it's just a...
Yeah.
like I said, I'd like to be ready to talk about these two projects at the next meeting, I think we're gonna approve them, so. I mean, I could look at the 25th or 26th too.
Between just do the 19th, we'll just.
I can make either of those.
You're okay with the 19th?
Nobody wants to have a Friday meeting? We can't do it on Wednesday, there's that school meeting.
Council, how about we hold it on the 19th following our Board of Appeals and Equalization? Hopefully that doesn't go till 10 o'clock at night or something. Okay, so we'll hold, motion to hold the special working session following the April 19th Board of Appeals and Equalization meeting, directly following it. Is that acceptable, Brian? So look for a motion to do that.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second for that?
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion, council? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Next item's pretty straightforward. Tammy's looking for us to, Portable John 2-year contract. Tammy?
Yes, I've used Porta John services for a few years. We had another vendor a few years ago, and then we went back to this one, and they've given excellent service. They give a good price. They're very reactive when I need something. I recommend that you approve that.
I like that motion for a 2-year contract, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, April. Second for that?
Support.
Thank you, Marty. Further discussion? Tammy, where do you put Portable Johns throughout the city if you had it?
Oh, we
Yes.
put them by the baseball fields. If we have got baseball, we put one by the volleyball courts. That way rec can use it and volleyball. We put one out at the skating rink, and then we move that to the playground area when the weather gets nicer. We put one by the disc golf course and along the walking trail on the north side by the tennis courts. I usually have one for youth soccer for about a month down at the school. Another one down at the Dock Moonlight Baseball Field for flag football. And then just various events.
And Redhead.
And Redhead. And the cemetery.
And then you have a daily rental in case you need one somewhere else
Right,
built into
like
it.
5K races or something like that, then, yeah.
All class union.
Yes.
All right, I have motion and support to accept the Portable John contract for 2 years. Any other discussion, council? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Last item on the agenda tonight, council. Chisholm Area Chamber of Commerce is planning our annual Dock Moonlight Graham Days beer tasting fundraiser on May 6, 2022. Proceeds from this event are used for our annual Dock Moonlight Graham Days and Dock Moonlight Graham Days Parade. We anticipate 200 plus people attending the event this year and are very happy with our Disney over Ice theme this year. So they're looking for a motion to declare a citywide festival on May 6, 2022, so that the people can enjoy the different beers throughout our community and move from one location to the next.
Beer and cocktail. They're adding a cocktail at every stop this year.
Oh. And adding a cocktail.
Very true.
All right.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Travis. Second for that?
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion?
Make sure you go back to your childhood now. We all grew up in the Disney era. Everyone should be there in costume.
Star Wars in costume.
I was there too, yeah.
We should do it back to the 80s ones. I could just show up like that.
My costume's ready. I'm ready. My costume's done, ready.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Anything else, council? If not, we'll look for motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
There is one other, just informational for you guys, and this, I guess, is public information by this time. If anybody who's ever served on jury duty, like Mr. Straba did last month, you get it for a month, but if you're on grand jury, you get it for a year. I'd like to thank the people that were on grand jury this week. We just reconvened the grand jury. But take the time to thank the citizens that were on the grand jury for this last week. We went to grand jury on Monday, we convened the grand jury, and they got back two counts of first-degree murder on Carbo for the Doherty homicide from 1986. So we got a win there for the city. So thank you very much for those people putting in their time and their year on grand jury duty, going out and get called. It's a big deal to me, so just informational. Our word before the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Shannon. Second for that? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned. There. Those are kind of ugly one. I only got one of them for you guys.